Greetings, everybody. Jir Anderson here with Native Guitars Tour. Behind the Mask. Welcome. Yes. We have an awesome show for you today. Very awesome guests. How's everybody doing? Right on. Yes, indeed. Happy Thursday, everybody. Once again, my name's Jir Anderson. I'm a singer, songwriter, musician, founder of Native Guitars Tour, and your host tonight for Behind the Mask. Yes. Every Thursday night, NGT brings you exhilarating live interviews with today's top Native artists. We bring you the genre of music Native Americana, contemporary music from the indigenous people of America who tell stories in modern styles of music, from blues to hip-hop, jazz to metal, funk to punk to hip-hop, the whole gamut. And tonight, we got the funk for sure, yes. So tune in each week as these musical superheroes take off those COVID masks for a safe one-on-one social interview. Yeah. How's it going, people? I'm going to start waving here in a little bit, but I'm just going to take 1 minute to tell you a little bit about Native Guitars Tour and who we are and what we do. Right on. Good to see all your faces. Thank you so much for tuning in. So, Native Guitars Tour, we've been around for about 14 years or so, over a decade, and then some. Yes. Our motto is providing a stage for Native America, and our movement has led us to mentor and foster and provide a platform to showcase today's hardest working Native American artists. We come from tradition and community and are doing amazing things in music globally. From blazing electric guitars to prodigies of violin and cello, the Native Guitars community is on the move, and we want you to join our journey. Yes. So excited for tonight. Yes, yes indeed. Wow, we got a good turnout so far. So Native Guitars Tour. Make sure you follow us on Instagram. If you go all the way up to the top up here where it says Behind the Mask, if you click on that, there's going to be a drop down and it'll say Native Guitars Tour follow. So do us a favor and follow us and support Native American artists. Yes. So excited. How's everybody doing? I'm going to wave to some folks. It's been an awesome day so far. Yes, I'm gonna get into the live here so I can start to see some of these comments coming up. Right on. What's up, Levi? Kate Wish. We gave Kate Wish an awesome thank you today. Today's Native Guitars Tour Thursday thank yous. Thank you to our followers and people supporting all the artists that we have here on Native Guitars Tour. Darren, how's it going, Darren Geffrey? Darren Geffrey's Blackfoot. He's out from South Dakota, Aberdeen. Right on. Well, it's going to be an awesome show this evening. We're so excited. Let me get into my... Yes, and this track we're listening to is called Two Souls Warring in a Bag of Skin. Yes. Is that skin? Yeah. Right on. Without any further delay, would like to introduce today's Behind the Mask featured guest. Yes, yes indeed. This gentleman has... Oh, wow. He's a legend. This is our legend series tonight because, with so many accomplishments and so many accolades, some of our artists, Native American artists, just deserve that title as legend. They've just been in the business long enough, supporting the community, supporting, the spirit of indigenous people. This gentleman is Apache. Yes. He's a guitarist. He's sold over 2 million albums worldwide. Those are solo albums too, people. Multiple albums. I have his whole playlist on iTunes. You can find him in all the major distribution networks. He's the director or executive producer of Rumble, the Indians that rocked the world. Now we'll definitely talk about that tonight. He's endorsed by Framus Warwick Guitars, Taylor Guitars, Jim Dunlop, LLA Custom S71 Guitars, Pardo Guitars. There's so many endorsements this gentleman has throughout the years. He's been on stages and performed with and toured with, from the likes of Rod Stewart. You could see him on Saturday Night Live with Mick Jagger. You can see him with George Clinton, Justin Timberlake's albums, the whole round there, just a well-rounded world, global artist here tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to connect with our artist this evening. I'm going to send him a request and hopefully, yes. Ladies and gentlemen, let's see. Okay, so I just sent you a request, Mr. Stevie Salas. So you should see it pop up. And there he is.
Is it working?
Ladies and gentlemen, Stevie Salas.
Do I have to send a request to join that thing? I don't know what I'm doing.
You're in. You're in. We can see you.
Okay, I'm the anti-tech. So you can help me out.
How you doing, Stevie?
I'm good. I'm just home. I just got back in the country, and I'm super happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, I just want to welcome you in. If you could just take a little minute, and I like doing this because I can edit it in. Just kind of introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you from your perspective.
Well, I'm old as dirt now, but I used to be super young. And when I was young, my family migrated from New Mexico. My father was in Wyoming. He joined the Marine Corps and met my mother. She migrated from the Clifton, Arizona area, Clifton along the border of New Mexico. And I was born in San Diego. And so I grew up surfing on a beach. My father worked on the Marine base in Camp Pendleton. And I just grew up like a surfer and a skateboarder. And when I was 15, I started playing guitar. And I liked it. It was kind of fun. I was playing high school dances and stuff. And I just thought, I was going to join the Coast Guard. And I just thought to myself, maybe I should try music. So I went to LA in 1985 when I got out of high school, a couple years after high school. And I kind of starved to death. But I moved to January 1985, I moved to Los Angeles. And by August 1985, I was homeless. I was sleeping in a closet, and then the lady who rented the house kicked me out of the house, and I couldn't sleep in the closet anymore. And it was cool when you're young; it didn't matter. So I was sleeping on a couch at a studio called Baby O Studio, where a guy called David O from a band called the Plimsolls liked me, and a guy called Rick Parada, who invented matchless amps. They owned the studio, and they let me sleep on the couch. And one night, I would just go up to musicians, and I'd be like, I had no shame when I was young. I'd be like, I'm Stevie Salas, I play guitar. And they'd go like, fuck off. And okay, problem. And I go up to the next guy and I do it again. And I didn't care. And one night I did it to a guy called George Clinton from Parliament Funkadelic. And he looked at me and goes, really? Okay. So about 3 o'clock in the morning, he was in the studio working with a guy called Jack Sherman, who was playing guitar in a session, who unfortunately just passed away. Rest in peace, Jack. But he was then the guitar player for the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And I guess Jack wasn't doing what he wanted. He asked me to come in and play at about 2, 3 in the morning. And I just went in there and I went bananas on the guitar, knowing George Clinton was crazy. And George liked me. And from that moment on, I was there and I worked on that album, R&B Skeletons in the Closet. He introduced me to Bootsy Collins. And then 3 years later, I just did all these weird things. And then Was Not Was, I had a #1 record in 87. And then I scored a movie called Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure that nobody cared about, that became massive. And then I joined Rod Stewart. And at the time, you know, Rod Stewart's really old now. So for all you young people, you're like, Rod Stewart. But in 1988, Rod Stewart was a god. You know, we do like 5 nights at Madison Square Gardens and private jet and the whole bit. And that was my first tour, other than my high school band. And then from then on, everything was crazy. I met Randy Castillo, the great Randy Castillo from Ozzy, and he knew I was a skin, and he said to me, "You got to come with me to Indian country, or you're gonna die." And I said, "Okay, let's go." And I'd never heard the phrase Indian country before. My parents. And I started hanging out in Taos with Randy, and when we could, and here I am now, 100 years later.
Wow, and we'll definitely get into more details. There's definitely some highlights there that you mentioned that we gotta dig into. But before we do, you know, we're in a different world right now. You know, it's just like a whole 360 or 180. If 360 will be right back where we were. But you know, with COVID, with the pandemic, you know, with all this racial and all this political world mess that's going on, everything's just really changed over the past 10 months or so.
Yeah.
How has this impacted your music, for one? And secondly, you know, what are you doing for your well-being and your self-care, you know, as an artist and as a person?
You know, I can't really complain now because, you know, I do okay. You know, I got a kid now, and I'm a dad, and I'm super into being a dad. So I looked at it as a positive of me being able to spend a lot more time with my son. And because I was really busy the last few years. Mostly I'm writing and producing television. After Rumble came out, I don't know if anybody out there see the film Rumble, but Rumble, you know, got nominated for an Emmy Award and won 3 Canadian Academy Screen Awards and 1 Sundance. And that was my first film. And when I made Rumble, the whole world went bonkers. And so now I'm writing a lot of scripts and developing television, all Indigenous related, all kind of cool and hip. Not like, I don't want to be like the guy who makes the show that talks about how we got screwed over. I want to be the guy who comes in with a positive look, because we're all, you know, we remember our past, but we're modern people now. We're not, you know, everything's not 200 years ago.
Yeah.
Break some stereotypes. So I'm enjoying that. And then I have a new record coming out on Warner Brothers. And I'm a lucky guy, because, you know, if I was just starting out now, it would be so hard, and I feel so bad for people. So if I could ever help people, I try all the time. You know, I called you out of the blue and said, "What are you doing, man? I like what you're doing. You're bringing people together." And I said, "Any way I can help you, just let me know. I want to help." So.
Yeah, well, we appreciate that. You know, I appreciate that. Native Guitar Store, you know, we've been around for 14 years, and you know,
I've been watching and wondering why no one ever asked me to come play. I see Derek Miller. What am I? I can't even get invited.
Yeah.
I'm like playing like a football stadium down the street, and then I can't even come play. You guys are like, "Get out of here." I'm like, "Come on, dude, when are you gonna call me, man?"
Well, your invitation is right here. I'm sending it to you right now, and you know, as soon as this we can get back to stages, you know, we're definitely going to be back on the road, you know, with our tour and being out there in front of live audiences and stuff. So definitely got that coming. But, you know, something that I do want to touch in, you know, and I'm pretty sure everybody wants to know, you know, as we are in these COVID years, you know, things seem a little down. And I really like your perspective on things. You know, that's kind of how I feel too, is, you know, just move forward. You know, we can't let this kind of hold you down.
Yeah.
But, you know, back in, you had mentioned many artists, you know, from touring with the legendary Rod Stewart, George Clinton, Mick Jagger, and that whole realm. How did, you know, when you first got into that part of your life and your career, how did you handle that personally? I mean, were you just completely overwhelmed, or did you kind of have a plan in your head at what you wanted it to do, or did you just enjoy everything? And it's like, how did that go?
You know, I wrote a book about my first tour with Rod Stewart. I had a lot of fun. You know, I'm not going to say, like, "Oh, you know, it was so tough." All the drugs and all the women. It's like, I'm not that guy. Man, it was awesome. I loved it. You kidding me? At the time of my life, a private jet, and it was like a dream, man. I played on the MTV Awards, and in 1988, and it was like an MTV Awards. I came home to my mom and dad's house in Oceanside, California, and I went for a jog in the neighborhood. The neighbors were coming out the street and clapping for this deal, right? So, I consider myself just super lucky, and I've been through some bad times. Everybody, it's mountains and valleys, but when you're up, you can't stay up, and when you're down, you got to remember you can't stay down. When you're going up, it's cool, but sooner or later you got to go back down. And when you do, you just don't stop. You got to keep going, because if you stop at the bottom, trying to find my hand there, and you keep going, pretty soon you're just gonna head back up. You just gotta go, and you gotta do it because you love it. You gotta not do it because you want money. And it's awesome to get rich playing music and making movies and all that stuff, but it's not a necessity. And you don't do it for the money. You do it because you love it, and you can't do it. And if you're lucky, you make some money, but at least you be happy, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's very interesting. And another part of that question I have, and this also came from, you had put up some questions today for people to ask, and people wanted to know, like, how was it, or how is it being native in the music business? Or did that even come up, or was it, how was that whole situation there?
Well, I can tell you. One of my best friends, you know the band The Stray Cats, right?
Yeah.
Well, one of my best friends is the drummer of The Stray Cats, Slim Jim Phantom. And Jimmy said to me one day, he goes, I was too stupid to know that I wasn't good enough to make it. So I made it. So I just never saw myself as different, ever. I just, I just had my friends, my rock star friends, and we went out. Until one day, I was watching a TV show, probably in the end of the 90s, after my career was kind of winding down in the music business, after 10 years straight and nonstop crazy records and all that stuff. And Matt Sorum, the drummer of Guns N' Roses, was on a TV show, and he was talking about guitar players and people of color. And he said, I'm sure Slash and I'm sure Stevie and like Jimi Hendrix, he goes, those guys, they didn't fit the stereotype. They didn't look like everybody else, so it was probably a little harder for them. And it dawned on me, I thought, you're right. I don't fit the stereotype, I guess. I don't look like, I don't know. But being indigenous, I believe, and I truly believe this, and I might have said it in the film Rumble, I could easily fit with the funk bands. I play with Justin Timberlake, and I got no problem with that, and Public Enemy, and I got no problem with that. But I can also play with the heavy guys, too, and I can hang out with Motley Crue, and I can go play with Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top. And so I think being indigenous, I write, there's a fine line of rhythm that indigenous people have that you can be funky and dance, but you can get heavy and you can kick ass. And I believe that's why I had a long career, but maybe that's why I wasn't super famous, because I was always going down the middle. Jesse Ed Davis, the great Kiowa guitar player, played with Clapton, and he also played with John Lennon. He played with all four Beatles. He was able to dance on both sides of the fence. And I think as an indigenous person, and I produce a lot of indigenous bands around the world, even Australian ones, Yothu Yindi and bands like that. They have this ability to create this new type of rhythm that's neither black nor white. And it works on both games. And I believe that my being not normal looking, like I didn't look like Vince Neil or some shit like that, I believe that actually helped me out in the end, right? In the end, at the end of the day, in the beginning, it was hard because it was hard to get a record deal because I didn't look like that look. But then Mick Jagger wanted me because he wanted, Robert Trujillo said Ozzy wanted cats that could play greasy like Randy Castillo and Robert Trujillo, who was from Taos, his family's from Taos. And so we got something. So you got to find that special thing, and then you got to figure out how to make it work, right? You got to put that and figure it out. That's the secret, is figuring out what your thing is and plugging it in and making it your thing.
Yeah. I totally agree. I've been doing music for like 30 years or so, and it's just, you got to be true to yourself. And being indigenous, we're still so close to our culture. It's just right here in America, the homeland. It's not, the promised land in another country. It's right here. It's where our feet lie. We take off our shoes and our feet are in the sand right where home is. So it's kind of a cool thing. I say that in terms of being cold. being rock and roll, but it's really a spiritual thing as well. So
You know, you say that though. I'm envious of you because of that. Because I'm really what they call a homeless Indian. Brian Wright McLeod, the great author, wrote the Encyclopedia of Indigenous Recorded Music, going all the way back to the early 1900s. And he called me and Randy Castillo and several other of us whose families came from the New Mexico area, the homeless Indians, because we grew up, like Taboo from the Black Eyed Peas. He was always told he was a Mexican and he lived in East LA until his grandma told him, no. We're from Nevada up here, and you're Shoshone. And I always knew I was Apache, but I didn't have anyone to reach out to go talk to. And I remember my cousin Gilbert, and he lives on the Palma Res in San Diego, and he started to go back and dig into our family, and he was hanging out with our two great aunts, and they were arguing. She's like, well, we're Apache, and and then her sister goes, no, we're not. We're not savages. She goes, yes, we are. And they were like 98 years old, and they're fighting it out still because of, a couple, 100 years ago, if you're a native person, a lot of bad things were happening to you, especially in the Southwest. So a lot of us grew up that being hidden. My birth certificate says my mom and dad are white, So even though they're darker than me, and my father is gone now, but so yeah. So I envy that you have this place and you can feel it at home. And when I come to Indian country, I love it. I feel it, and so I know what you're saying, but I don't really get to know what you're saying like the way you do.
yeah. Well, we're all brothers. So, anytime you're around, let's hang out and, just be brothers. That's what what's it about. It's that connection, just like all the people you mentioned, they're your brothers, and the spirit that you give them, the joy you give them when you're in that room, that's native, that's your spirit. And, that's your home. Your home is right here. It's always right here.
Well, Randy Castillo said the same thing. He was the one that said, I got to take you to Indian country, because he understood this life I was living, right? All of a sudden I was newly kind of rich. I was super young, had all this money and all this madness. And Randy had already kind of been through it. He was an Aussie and he'd already done it. And he looked at me and he was like, come on. And he took me, when I started hanging out in New Mexico with Randy, it was the place I would go to be grounded and to find balance, so I could go back into the madness. But too much time in the madness is no good. But so I needed to have a balance, and that New Mexico really gives me a good balance.
Well, that's good. Yeah. And the other good thing about being native is the food.
Except for my fat ass.
Yeah.
You don't look so good. Food. I don't look so good in them tight pants on tour no more.
Yeah. But one thing this hour just seems to go by so fast. So I want to make sure I touch on a lot of different things.
Yeah, and if anyone has any questions or any of that kind of stuff, lay it on me too. It's all
yeah, right. Yeah. We'll definitely here at towards the end we'll take some questions for everybody. So if you have something, there's a little question box there. Type in your question and we'll get to that question. Rumble. Yes, this is something that really help support the community, as Native people, because I think in our culture we kind of knew this story and we kind of knew those ties because we can hear it, right? We can hear it in blues, we can hear it in jazz, we can hear it in rock and roll. You hear the roots of Native America in there. But for you, to help, put this, I guess our people in that light so the world could see it and see, who was really deeply involved in the evolution of music. That was just a powerful thing. Tell us a little bit about Rumble and how you got involved with that project.
Well, at the end of the 90s, I wanted to retire from music. I was just sick of the music business, and I had enough money and I had enough, houses and all that kind of stuff that's so important, right, at the time. And I hated the music business. I just got sick of dealing with people. And I like to surf, and so I spent a lot of time in Cabo San Lucas. I spent a lot of time in Costa Rica, and I said, I'm going to retire. And I decided, I went up to Canada to open for the Rolling Stones. at this gig. And by now it was like 2003, I think. It's four, I don't know, in the early 2000s. And I was going over the Rolling Stones. And when I was up there, it'd be an interview for a couple TV shows. And I got interviewed for the book by Brian Wright McLeod, the Encyclopedia of Native American Recorded Music, where he goes all the way back to the wax cylinders in the early 1900s. And he interviewed me for his book. And it was an honor to be in it. But then he started talking to me about things like Jesse Davis and Link Ray and Robbie Robertson in Mohawk. And I started to think to myself, what could I do something for somebody else other than myself? What could I do to give back? I spent a lot of time going to Indian country, like I said, but I wanted to do something. And I wanted to show Indigenous musicians that they had more role models out there than just people from 110 to 125 years ago, right? We had modern guys, Ricky Medlock, and great guys like this that were just crushing and truly inspiring and breaking stereotypes and getting into places that seemed impossible to get into. And I wanted them to have this, to know that if they could do it, anyone can do it. It was really important to me. So I thought, maybe I'll make a coffee table book. Maybe I'll make I didn't know what to do. And then what happened was I was speaking at an opening of a studio in Six Nations. Kenny Hill built this amazing studio in Six Nations, and I went up there and I helped him find the mixing board. I was producing a band in Costa Rica, and I found this Abbey Road studio board from England and shipped it up to Six Nations. And when I gave this speech, I said, I find that, and it was on the res, and I said, I find that everybody's so excited to see one native on TV. I remember the head of the Semble said to me, Stevie, how come you're on Jay Leno and there's no other natives on Jay Leno or whatever? And I'm like, that has nothing, because it has nothing to do with me being native. It has something to do with its music, it's with the songs, it's all these other things. And I thought, what can I do? So I told this story about these icons to a guy called Tim Johnson, who was the head of the Smithsonian National Museum of the American Indian, who was at this thing. And he said, come meet me in Washington, D.C. I want to show you the museum. I flew there. We talked about this story. He goes, come on. And we went down to the train station. Then we took a train to New York City, and he showed me the museum there all on the same day. And we said, let's create an exhibit about these musicians. And so I set about 3 years working at the Smithsonian and created the exhibit, which then, and it was supposed to be a small exhibit, but it became the most popular exhibit at the Smithsonian that they had ever had. And they didn't want Randy Castillo in it because it was a very scholastic place. And they're like, the drummer from Ozzy Osbourne, what? And it's like, you don't get it. I go, you don't get it. And what happened was Randy would have kids lined up outside just worshiping Randy. You know, Randy was already gone. And I told everybody, see, man, that guy's the icon. And for the young people. And he brought young people into the museum who would never walk into a museum. So after the museum's run was done, I decided we need to make a movie. And I met the girls that made the film called Real Engine in Canada. And and we decided to make Rumble, and we went about it. It was 5 insanely hard years. It was the hardest thing I ever did. And all I really wanted to do was make a film that showed Indigenous people that they had some heroes that they could look up to. I wanted to just show that. And I had no idea that we were going to change written history as we know it. Because now the story of Rumble, it was unwritten history. It's documented history now, and it's being taught in universities and high schools across America. It's a school curriculum now. So we changed written history in North America. But I got a D- in history class, right, in high school. And I spoke at friggin' Notre Dame. So who knows? Anything's possible.
Wow. Yeah, if history class was like that, we would have all got A's.
That's what they say. That's
Right.
what they're teaching it now. They're teaching it. Yeah, they teach it in college and they teach it in high school. And how's that, man? You get to learn about Randy Castillo and Jesse Davis and Buffy St. Marie and Link Ray.
Definitely all legends, and you fit right in there. It's really amazing to see through the years how Native American musicians have impacted the culture of Western, I'm going to say Western the Western world, but also on the other side as well. And I want to talk about that a little bit too. But I just want to kind of reset the room for anybody that's just joined. We're a Native Guitarist tour where you're watching Behind the Mask with Mr. Stevie Salas. Yes.
I need a facial mask right now.
Yeah.
My skin's peeled just in Costa Rica for a couple of weeks. So.
Yep. So a little bit about Native Guitarist Tour. We provide a stage for Native America. We've been around about 14 years. We do everything from workshops, seminars, motivational speaking, conferences. We do schools, performances. And our most favorite thing we do are live tours and concerts, with featuring Native American musicians. So, we're looking, now that we're in this virtual world, to get some of our audience from overseas, Europe, Japan, Asia. So if you're interested and you're watching and you want some Native American perspective on music or just inspiration or motivation or culture, reach out to us, and we love to, be and share, our stories. So just wanted to throw that. But ladies and gentlemen, we have Stevie Salas, if you're just joining in, Behind the Mask. Yes. And let's talk about your...
I want to comment on something you just said.
Yeah.
Because, we all have to realize that it is a great big world out there, right? And what I learned early was, because I went to London in '87 before I was in Rod Stewart. They were flying me to London to play guitar on weird records over there, Terence Trent D'Arby and guys like that were new at the time. And I realized that they worshipped me because I was indigenous, man. People thought I was the coolest. I mean, a lot of people, like in nice hotels, thought I was Egyptian, but when they find out I was Apache, they would just freak out. Jeff Beck freak out. His wife Sandy used to freak out. Oh my God, they're my own people. I was like, so I tell people, our culture is worshipped around the world much more than it is here at home. And don't be afraid to go places. If they don't like you here, go there. Because you know what? You can sell as many records in France, or you can sell as many records in Japan, or you can sell many records in places where they love you. Just as many is here. You don't have to be successful here. You don't have to beat your head in the wall. Get out, see the world, show your stuff, and you're gonna find people who love you in those places.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I was out in Europe year before. I went to do some scouting and went through all the way from Paris, hiked, or I'm going to say backpacked, all the way through Germany, through up towards Switzerland, and looking for places to take Native Guitarist Tour. And we had this year planned. We were going to go out to Germany and do some stuff in Europe, and COVID hit, and we just everything went down the tube. So, but I totally agree with you. And your audience in Japan, you got a lot of people on here. So thank you, people, from joining from Japan. We really appreciate you tuning in. Tell us a little bit about that and how that developed.
Fucking hell if I know. All I know is I put a record out in 1990, okay? And I toured. The day it came out, I went on tour opening for a guy called Joe Satriani. And I did a Flying in the Blue Dream tour for 6 or 8 months. And it was hell. I hated it. I mean, I loved Joe. But what happened was I was playing with Rod Stewart the year before, playing football stadiums. And it would be thousands of girls and supermodels and movie stars. And all of a sudden I'm on tour opening for Joe Satriani, and it's like 5,000 people a night, and there was about 3 girls in the crowd every night. And they were just with some guy. It was just like dudes, and they would stare at your fingers. And it was horrible. It was great for me because it made me a famous guitar player. I won number 3 in the Guitar World Magazine Readers Poll that year, and for Best New Guitarist, and I won number 1 in Japan and number 2 in Europe. I think Nuno got number 1 in America, and I got number 1 in Japan, and Nuno got number 2. I mean, we were all out doing this thing. And so it made me a well-known guitar player, which was good for me playing with Joe, because Joe taught me a lot. Joe's a master. But it wasn't fun because it was just like work. Every night there was guys going, "Oh, you're playing this pentatonics." And I'm like, "What's a pentatonic? I don't even know. I never took a lesson," right? So as soon as I finished that tour, I got asked to go to Japan, and every one of my shows was sold out, and they were going bonkers. And ever since then, in 1990, I've just had this massive fan base in Japan. And lately, I get to have some fun. I have a new project there with my dear friend Koshi Inaba. It's called Inaba Salas. And we go there, and I'll bring the bass player from Jamiroquai, and I'll bring the keyboard player from Parliament Funkadelic, and the drummer of Beck, you know, Crowded House. And I can put together a band with anybody we want. We sell out in 3 minutes. We just had to return 90,000 tickets, though, because of COVID. We just had to cancel a bunch of shows. But yeah, so Japan is bananas. It's so awesome. And they love rock and roll, and they love Native people. Because they're Native people. Most of them are indigenous people.
Yeah. You know what? You know what I find is a lot of indigenous cultures, whether it's, Asian or African or Indian or whatever continent you come from, we can really relate. I mean, that relationship that you have, with the earth, that you have with the people, it's just very welcoming.
Yeah, it's like that a lot of places in the world. Here they just, here it's always about how much money can you make? How much money can you make?
Yeah.
Kind of. But yeah, Japan is an amazing place for the arts, an amazing place for music. They love music, and I love Japan. And I go there whenever I can. I love to surf there, and I don't know. Japan has been a blessing for me. Because at a time when I became really unsuccessful in America and my career could have ended, all of a sudden I was selling 1 million records in Japan, and I was selling 500,000 records in Germany and France. And, I had to travel the world. And back then they didn't have an internet. So I'd come home and people were like, where you been? And it's like, how come you got a new Mercedes Benz? Like, what are you doing? You selling drugs? I'm like, no, man, I sold 10,000 tickets last night in Japan. It's like, it's like, so nobody knew because there was no internet. So people had no idea what I was doing around the world. And I remember Steve Lukather asked Jimmy Dunlap, he goes, what's he doing? Because he was my neighbor. He lived up the street from me, and he said, hey, what's he doing? Is he selling drugs? I'm like, what the hell's going on? Where's he getting this money? People had no idea that was going on around the world. And I can't say it enough. Get your tour out there, build up your fan base, but make the songs great. You can't just do it by being cool. You got to make great songs, and you got to be great. It's still competitive.
Yeah. Definitely. Understand the quality of music needs to be high, and that's what we kind of do. We set the bar really high with the artists that we bring, but we also do development where we have like the introductory stages where we try to let people know, okay, this is what you need to do to get to that next level. You have to be set up in 5 minutes, so before you can move to the next.
There's no shortcut for hard work. I work my ass off still, writing scripts and working on films. And Rumble was really hard. And I have a new movie out now called The Water Walker about Autumn Peltier, the Anishinaabe water walker girl that's, just turned 15. And she's got an insanely hard life. She speaks at the United Nations and, in Davos, and she's trying to bring clean water to her people. And, there's a lot of stuff out there, and none of it's ever that easy. But if you love it, it's worth it.
Yeah. And I can definitely see you have a passion for the music. And, I can't not hit this topic. Otherwise people are going to be pissed.
What is it?
Guitars.
I got 100 of them.
Yeah. Let's talk guitars. I mean, So walk us through it. I mean, what got you into guitars? And then let's get into the technical side of, what are your current favorite guitars, top 5 or something like that?
Well, it's hard to say that because I've always had at least around 100 guitars laying around. And I get, everybody in the world makes some guitars and sends me guitars. I get them in the mail all the time. Sounds crazy, but, and I design guitars for Framus, and I have my ones called the Idol Makers, and those are amazing. And I'll just tell you, when I was a kid, I built a Stratocaster from parts in high school in Carlsbad, and I still use that guitar today. I used it on Justin Timberlake. I used that guitar when I was a kid with Rod Stewart. I used that guitar with Mick Jagger. I used that guitar today in the studio. I was in the studio today cutting a song, and I used that same guitar that I built in high school through parts, and nothing sounds like it. But then I got old Fenders and Gibsons, and I buy pawn shop guitars. I have a guitar I bought for $25 that the pickup's screwed into the top. like just with wood screws, and nothing sounds more like Green Day than that guitar. It's just like perfect for that. And so, you know, I am not one of those guys that's like a guitar, oh, it's my baby. It's like I fucking smash them all up and I fucking destroy them. I don't give a shit. And I got a lot of them at the Hard Rock Cafe. I think I got one that smashed at the Hard Rock Cafe. So I'm not a guitar worshiper, like, oh, my darling, my Lucille or whatever. Like, fuck that. It's like, they're like, yeah, they're like my surfboard or something. You know, they're like a tool for me to rock on and have fun with and explore these things. So I don't go into the craziness, and I never took a lesson. But I think like a Jedi, okay? This sounds crazy. You know how Luke in the first Star Wars, which was actually the fourth Star Wars, the first one, Luke's trying to learn how, and Obi-Wan's like, he's getting the shit shocked out of him, right? He's trying to learn how to use the lightsaber, and Obi-Wan says, your mind will trick you, Luke. And he puts the cover on his eyes, and he goes, don't think, your eyes will fool you. And then he's like, like nailing it, right? And it's the same, because when you play an instrument, the minute you think about what you're doing, now you've got a thing from here to here. It's not just flowing like the Force. So you got to be a Jedi, man. You got to be a Jedi, and you got to not think. You just got to let it come through you. And often you'll hear what you did that night. You go, oh my God, I played that. And then sometimes you hear it and you go, oh my God, I sucked. So, you know, but I'd rather have it be amazing and not amazing than just be too much thinking and like, who gives a shit, right?
Yeah. Are you like a first taker? You know, your first take is always the best?
No, maybe not the best, but I get bored really fast.
Yeah.
And I don't like taking a zillion takes, because then I also get overwhelmed with not being able to tell the difference. When I produce a band, I'm very direct about what I want, how to get it. And I usually have pretty good results. I mean, I had hits, #1 record as a producer in 1987 before I even had a record deal, you know, with Was Not Was, Walk the Dinosaur, this crazy weird song, and it was #1 all over the world. So, you know, you just got to use your instinct. I didn't produce Walk the Dinosaur, though. I produced songs on that album and played guitar on it. And I'm in those videos. But I don't want anyone to think I'm saying I produced Dinosaur. I produced the other songs on the record. But I don't know. I think you should not think too much, and you should use the Force like Luke.
I totally agree with you. You know, it's just that feel good, have a good time, and what comes out comes out. If people don't like it, oh well.
You want them to like it, but you know,
Yeah.
your mind will trick you. You know, you can trick yourself real easy. When I was young, I played with a guy called Bootsy Collins, who's a Hall of Fame, insane bass player, one of the best in the world. And I remember I was really upset in LA because my first album, Color Code, was critically acclaimed, but it didn't sell a lot. And people were going, hey, I heard your album bombed. You know, because I only sold 100,000 copies or something like that. And I was really depressed. And I remember Bootsy called me about working on something, and I told him I was really down. He goes, well, what's wrong with you? And he goes, it's your mind, you know. He goes, you're tricking yourself. I go, what do you mean I'm tricking myself? He goes, you're tricking yourself. You tricked yourself into getting your feelings hurt. And I go, what do you mean? Because your mind will trick you. He goes, those people weren't your friends anyways, you know what I mean? So they couldn't hurt your feelings because they really weren't your friends. It's like your mind is tricking you. And it's like, he's right, you know? So the mind can screw you up, man. And the mind can tell you you're not good enough. The mind can tell you you're not pretty enough. The mind can tell you, and sometimes you're not pretty enough and you're not good enough. But if you don't know it, it's like Slim Jim Phantom said, I was too stupid to know I wasn't good enough to make it. So I made it. You know what I mean? So all you out there, don't let your mind mess with you, man. You do your thing.
Yeah. Well, that kind of leads me into the next question I have. You know, again, we had people asking questions throughout the past couple of weeks once we posted the show. And one thing that I think we kind of briefly talked about is, you know, for our people that are striving musicians, hardworking musicians, what advice would you give those that are starting out and just coming up, you know, those beginner musicians that want to make music their career?
I would say never give up. Never give up your dream, because the day that you give up might be the day before that dream comes true. But get to know yourself and understand yourself and set yourself a parameter, okay? Because you don't want to be the guy who's like 50 and still sleeping on mom's couch and, you know, playing at Club Lingerie trying to hope you're going to make it someday. You got to be realistic about where your market is and who you're going to sell yourself to. Like, I ain't trying to like be like I'm 19 anymore, right? And I can barely walk. So it's like, and I don't fit in. It's just, when you see that guy and you're like, that guy needs to know who he is. He doesn't know himself. So get to know yourself, set your goals, and do it because you love it. And if you get lucky, you might make some money. But do it because you can't not do it, I think I saw Levi's name on there and shit like that. And like Levi's been crushing, never stops. Just keep hitting it. Still looking good. Still working hard. And that's what you do, man. You just do it, and then hopefully you get lucky. But you gotta say that if you did that, and you were true to yourself, and you didn't become, Billie Eilish, or you didn't become, one of those kind of David Bowie or something. You still were true to yourself, and you were honest with yourself, and you didn't embarrass yourself. You didn't sell yourself out trying to make some money and doing some shit you regret. Like, you won't find no pictures of me like, looking like I'm in Poison ever. And thank God I didn't do it, because probably I should have, because everyone was doing it. And that's, you know what I mean? But I didn't do it, thank God.
Yeah.
I got nothing against the guys in Poison, by the way. Those are my guys. They're friends of mine. But at that particular time in my life, I choose to become more of an indigenous hardcore kind of guy, thinking about social with me.
Yeah. Well, at least you got no blackmail photos out there, right?
I might have. I don't know. Maybe a couple, but then I can.
So what are you working on now? What kind of things are you into as far as, music or film, or, just the whole realm there? What are you working on?
I'm working on a new crime series. Have you ever seen the movie called Maleficent?
Yeah.
With Angelina Jolie. I wrote and created with Brian Porter up in Six Nations. We created a series and a really amazing writer named Kevin Monroe, who did my son's favorite film, Ratchet and Clank. And we wrote a crime series about this really badass group of Native American guys who are doing what they're having to do to stay off the government tit and evolving. Joseph Kennedy was a criminal. He was, cheated in the stock market, and the Bronfmans were bootleggers, and before they owned Seagrams as legitimate, so it's a bit of a story like The Sopranos, but in indigenous style, and it's pretty badass. We signed with a company called Blue Ant, and Robert Stromberg is my partner, who directed Maleficent, and Kevin, who did Ratchet and Clank, and he worked with George Lucas, and Wes Studi is an executive producer on it, and I'm working on that pretty hard. Mostly I'm working on film, developing TV, and that's really what I'm into. I got a new record coming out on Warner Brothers, and I'm playing with this guy, Koshi Inaba, man. And Stevie Salas in Japan is massive. So it's like, when I go on tour, it's like, we got a masseuse and, all the good. Great. So I'm having fun. I'm having a great time. And I'm a dad, and my son is awesome. Thank God. Is like amazing. And I don't know. I'm just trying to have a good time, and I'm trying to inspire, and I'm trying to take what I learn and show people, to help them if I can. And I want to live to be 80 or 90, so I can watch my kid grow up, and I can still meet gorgeous girls and go to Paris and do all the fun stuff I love to do.
Did you get to jam with Wes Studi at all?
Well, I'll tell you a funny story. Okay. Back when Randy Castillo used to take me to Indian country, in the 90s, early 90s, there was a guy called Robbie Romero, and he had a band called Red Thunder. And it was kind of jive ass a little bit, but it was like, at first we didn't know that. And we just went to go play. So we go to the play, and me and Randy would play. And one night, Dances with Wolves was pretty big. And we're on stage in New Mexico playing a gathering or something, right? And this is like 1991 or something like that, a long time ago. And I look, and Wes Studi's next to me playing like maracas or some shit, or tambourine. And now Wes is like my brother. I mean, I hang out with Wes all the time. But I was like, that's fucking the guy that's Bagua. You know what I mean? It's like, and I never jammed with him, but he's a bass player. And I was teasing him recently. Recently we had a thing where we were at this event, and me and Billy Gibbons and Ricky Medlock the great Ricky Medlocke, Leonard Skinner, and Blackfoot, and Matt Sorum from Guns N' Roses were at this party. We got up to jam. It was 2,000 Native American people there. And I didn't have a bass player. So Gil Birmingham, the actor, I don't know if you guys know Gil. He's in Hell or High Water, and he was in whatever the movie with the kids, you know, the Wolf Kids or whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't see it. But he plays guitar. He's a good guitar player. So I said, you got to play the bass. And Gil's like, I don't know if I can play the bass on ZZ Top Tush or some shit like that. I go, it's fucking 4 strings. I go, you play a string. This is 2 less. So he did it. He played the bass. But I didn't realize Wes Studi plays the bass, so I could get Wes. Yeah.
I did a gig with Wes one time. We were doing this thing up in Santa Fe, and we were setting up, and I look over, and Wes is breaking his bass out, you know, and I think his wife was doing vocals or something.
He sings, yeah.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool gig. And he's also supported Native Guitar Store. He's been out to several of our shows and stuff. So
he's the best, man.
Yeah.
Award, man. He's the first Academy Award winner for acting, you know.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I'm so proud of him. We flew out when he got the Academy Award, my son and I and his mother and Wes and his wife, and we all went to dinner in Santa Fe and celebrated. And I'm so proud of Wes Studi, man. Wes was just voted one of the 25 greatest actors in Time Magazine of the decade or something like that. So,
I saw that.
Graham's a legend. Graham narrated our new film, The Water Walker, and these guys, you know, they will do anything for you if you are worthy. They will do it. You know what I mean? That's why when I saw what you were doing on Instagram, and I said, well, you're doing something really good here. I reached out to you, and I go, I love what you're doing here. You're gathering, you're putting people together so they have a place to be. And that's really honorable and really something important to do. And that's why I reached out to you a long time ago and told you, man, I don't know what, and I've never met you, but I'm going to tell you, man, what you're doing is really good, man. It's good for everybody.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate that. You know, that's
you do that good shit, and you're gonna stand out. You know.
Yeah, I think, you know, when I got to a certain point, I just felt, you know, just like you're feeling, you know, you got to give back to your community. You have the network, you know, it's like, why am I not doing this? So, you know, that's what I've been doing, and it's been great. You know, it's great. It's even, it just fills you up so much more than, you know. It's like people are thanking you, and it's like, why? I just love this. This is so much fun, you know, doing all this stuff.
Well, next thing you know, you'll make Rumble too.
Yeah. Hey, there we go.
Yeah, somebody else should do it. I'm not going to do it, man. It's too much hard work. But you should do it. Some of you guys out there should do it. There's a lot of good filmmakers out there, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. That'd be a great thing to, you know, continue that and feature you more, because that's, you know, that genre that, you know, is just, I know you're the executive producer and you probably didn't want to be in the film or anything, but, you know.
I don't need to, you don't think of me when I'm dead. Just make sure they don't forget me. You know, the thing that I love is, like, the first time that I was doing something in Indian country, I called Tommy Lee, okay? And everybody thinks, oh, Tommy Lee's out of his mind. And Tommy Lee is out of his mind. It's fucking awesome. But Tommy said, he's like, dude, what are you doing? I said, listen, there are indigenous people who fucking worship your band, and they worship you, and they worship Six. And I go, but you guys ain't never going to play in Yellowknife or Moose Jaw. You're not playing up in, like, you know what I mean, in Farmington. So I go, well, you should come and do this thing with me on this TV show and blah, 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 blah. And they're like, let's do it, man. They really, you know, people want to know the people's people. They want to know. You just got to give them a chance, and you got to say hello, and you'll find that they're going to be like, man, you know, enlighten me. Help me out. People want to know what we got going on, because they think we got all the answers even when we don't. So if you don't know the answer, just lie. And they'll follow you anyways until you figure it out. Then you can lay it on them then.
Yeah, that's, you know, it is really great, you know, if you put yourself out there and you kind of let people know who you are, what you're about. They're really perspective, and, you know, they want to be there for you. They want to support you, you know, just like you. When I reached out to you and we started talking, and it was just like, yeah, this is, you know, all part of the journey, you know, all part of the journey for sure.
Just don't be afraid to ask, because if you don't ask, you don't know what you can get. You know, you can get, you know, a million people told me no, I wasn't going to get a record deal. A million people said I wasn't going to get a record deal until one person said yes. And then next thing you know, I had 10 people trying, you know. So it's, you can't hear it. You just got to do it. You got to do it. You got to never give up, you know, and just, but you got to remember to, if you're trying to walk through a fucking wall, maybe you just need to take one step to the side. No, there's a door. So also know when you're just walking into a wall, you got to know yourself and you got to see your surroundings and really understand, not out of fear, but out of being realistic and true to yourself. Find your thing. I did a thing, you know, I should tell you this. When it was 1986, I'm in LA, like I'm playing with George Clinton now, and I'm playing all this funk music. George and them didn't let me play funk with them, but everyone thought I was a funk player because I was playing with George Clinton and Bootsy Collins and Funkadelic, right? And I realized right then I was never going to be as good as Eddie Van Halen, the great Eddie Van Halen, who I love. I still love to hang out with Eddie. And I realized right then that I was not going to be ever that guy. There's just, how am I going to touch that guy? He's the greatest. He was one of my biggest influences, him and Mick Ronson from Bowie, and, you know. So I said to myself, maybe I could be the guy who mixes rhythmic, funky music with heavy guitar. And the Chili Peppers weren't heavy then because they used to hang out with us. They were more punk rock. And you know, I just started doing it, and that became my thing. I found this thing that was my thing. So everyone has to sort of find their thing. Or you got to have such a great, great song that's undeniable, you know, or just one of those great bands, you know, that find your team of guys that, you know, are fantastic.
Yeah.
Our girls, I should say. I'm sorry.
Well, Stevie, thank you for those words. You know, definitely you got some big open ears out here in the audience listening. A lot of love coming to you, a lot of hearts, a lot of awesome emojis. A lot of questions. We just can't get into all of them. There's just so many questions. I think we got into as many as we could. I was reading through them as we were talking, and I tried to make sure I included some of those questions into our discussion. But Stevie Salas, everybody. Want to thank you, Stevie, for joining us this evening. It was an awesome conversation. You're an awesome brother. Really appreciate you joining Native Guitars Tour tonight, and you have that invitation to come join us on stage anytime.
No way. I'm not going to let you guys embarrass me and you realize that I suck. No way. No way. I'll tell you what, I'm always around. We have a part 2 down the line once the COVID vibe is over. Write down all them questions people have. Hopefully by then I'll be doing some other TV stuff, and we can just keep shit happening. I'm always here, and I'm always open ears, man. And thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And once again, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, Stevie Salas. Let's hear some hearts out there. Want to thank everybody for tuning in. This is Native Guitars Tour. We are providing a stage for Native America. We've been around about 14 years, and we just really enjoy the journey. We do anything from, you know, seminars to workshops to live productions. We do motivational speaking. We just do the whole round there. So anybody of you in other countries that, you know, want an indigenous perspective on things, give us a DM, you know, let us know. We'll be happy to link up with you, happy to do a virtual presentation, you know, the whole thing. And once COVID comes off, then we can hit those lands and hop on that plane and head on over. So once again, thank you, Stevie. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This is Behind the Mask. I'm Jir Anderson, your host this evening, and wishing everybody a great evening. Be safe out there. Much blessings and respect to y'all. Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.